I didn't go to my parents' 35th anniversary dinner, expecting to burn the whole table down. I went because I hadn't seen my father smile in 3 years, and I thought maybe, just maybe, the woman who raised me would finally say the 2 words I had been quietly starving for. I was wrong on almost every count, but I had my phone. And I had 28 months of bank statements organized in a folder I had never expected to open in public. Let me start where it actually started. Not at the restaurant, but in a hospital waiting room in January 2.5 years ago, when my father had a stroke at 59 years old, and everything I thought I understood about my family cracked straight down the middle. My father had worked for the same manufacturing company for 22 years. He drove a forklift, trained new hires, took double shifts every Christmas so the younger guys could go home to their kids. He was the kind of man who showed up early and left late and never once complained about it. When the stroke took the coordination in his left hand and scrambled the processing speed in his brain just enough to disqualify him from operating heavy machinery, the company let him go with 12 weeks of severance and a handshake. My mother, who had spent the last decade managing the front desk at a pediatric clinic, made enough to cover groceries and utilities, but nothing close to the mortgage, the car note, and my father's new stack of medical bills. I was 31 years old then. I was living in Columbus, working as a financial compliance analyst for a regional bank, making decent money, not rich money, but stable money. I had a 1-bedroom apartment, a used Nissan, and a savings account I had been quietly feeding for 4 years with plans to eventually buy something small with a yard. The day my mother called me from the hospital parking garage, crying so hard I could barely understand her, I told her to stop worrying about the mortgage. I told her I would handle the gap. I need to explain something about why I set it up the way I did, because this is the part people always question, and honestly, it's the part I had to stop beating myself up over too. My father is a proud man. The stroke had already taken enough from him: his job, his independence, the handshake strength he used to greet every person he ever met. The last thing he needed was to watch his daughter's name show up on his bank statement every month like a reminder of everything he could no longer provide. My mother understood this. She was the one who suggested it. Don't transfer it directly to the joint account. She told me on the phone about a week after he came home from the hospital. Your father checks that account obsessively now. Every notification. It's like he's waiting to watch the balance disappear. If he sees your deposits every month, it'll humiliate him. Send it to my personal account, and I'll make sure it gets where it needs to go. You can trust me with this, sweetheart. I trusted her. She was my mother. I had never in my life had a reason not to. I set up an auto transfer of $2,100 on the first of every month, sent to her personal savings account, with the memo line reading simply household. For 28 months, I watched that amount leave my account like clockwork. I skipped the trip to Portland. My college friends took 2 summers in a row. I kept driving my Nissan with the cracked rear bumper I couldn't justify fixing. I ate lunch at my desk most days and stopped going to the gym to cut the membership fee. I did it without complaint because they were my parents, and that is what you do. What I did not do, and I am still unpacking this with my therapist, is push back when my mother gently redirected every question I asked about the finances. Every time I said something like, "Did the mortgage payment go through okay this month?" she would say something like, "Yes, everything's fine. Your brother is helping coordinate a few things on this end. Don't worry about the details." I let those answers land because I wanted to believe them. I was working 50-hour weeks and running financial compliance audits by day, and somehow, the thought of applying that same forensic lens to my own mother's checking account felt like an act of accusation I wasn't ready to make. Derek did not deserve the benefit of my doubt, but I kept giving it to him anyway, out of habit. My brother is 2 years older than me and has coasted on charm and our parents' admiration for his entire adult life. He is the kind of person who walks into a room and immediately starts performing for whoever seems most important. He went to community college for a semester, declared it beneath him, spent 3 years developing a concept for a food truck that never materialized, and eventually married Brooke, who works in pharmaceutical sales and makes enough money for both of them, while Derek describes himself as in the entrepreneurial space. Brooke is not a bad person. Exactly. She is simply a person who has fully committed to the story Derek tells about himself, and so she performs it with him, two people in an ongoing production of a life they do not quite actually live. I watched Derek sweet-talk my parents through every failed venture. I watched my mother slip him money she didn't have for startup costs that evaporated inside a month. I watched my father look at him the way fathers look at sons they have decided to believe in regardless of evidence. And I accepted it, mostly, because I was not there for the praise. I was there because they needed help, and I could provide it. The anniversary dinner was at an Italian restaurant my parents had been going to since before I was born. Private room in the back, long table with a white cloth, the kind of place that brings out a candle when they hear it's a special occasion. My mother had organized it. My aunt and uncle drove in from Dayton. A few family friends, people I had known since childhood, filled out the rest of the seats. I arrived on time, which in my family means I arrived before Derek, which means I sat with my father for about 15 minutes while he nursed a glass of water and stared at the door. When Derek and Brooke walked in, he lit up. That is the only word for it. Something behind his eyes switched on in a way it hadn't when I kissed his cheek 20 minutes earlier. Brooke was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly car insurance. Derek had on a blazer that fit too well to be anything but new. They were carrying a large wrapped gift and trailing the specific energy of people who intend to be the center of something. I sat in the chair closest to the wall. I ordered the pasta. I smiled at my aunt and listened to her talk about her garden, and told myself I was being paranoid about the crawling unease that had settled at the base of my sternum since I walked through the door. My mother stood up before the food came out. She was flushed and happy, holding her wine glass in that way she does when she's about to say something she's been rehearsing. She looked around the table, and her eyes moved from face to face with the warm deliberateness of someone who has thought about this moment. They stopped on Derek and Brooke. 35 years, she said, her voice catching at the edges the way it always does when she is genuinely moved. Your father and I have been through more than most people understand. The last couple of years have been the hardest of our lives. We almost lost the house. We almost lost each other to the fear of it. She paused, reached across the table and squeezed Derek's forearm. But we didn't, because of these two. Derek and Brooke stepped up when we had nothing, and I want everyone in this room to know that we are still standing because of them. The table applauded. My aunt made a soft sound of admiration. My father looked at my brother with the glistening eyes of a man who has been rescued. I put my fork down. I want to be precise about the feeling that came over me in that moment, because it was not simply hurt. It was more structural than that. It was the sensation of a floor you have been standing on for years, suddenly proving hollow. I had sent $58,800 to my mother's personal account over 28 months. I had the transfer confirmations on my phone. I had the auto draft records in my banking app. I had the memo lines that read household, filed in a folder I had labeled, somewhat grimly in retrospect, parents ongoing. And I was sitting in a restaurant being applauded past. My father looked at me then. His eyes were still warm from the toast, but there was something else in them when they landed on me. Something vague and faintly apologetic, as though he was dimly aware of a gap he couldn't quite name. You've always been our rock too, sweetheart, he said, in the tone adults use to console children who didn't win the prize. That was what undid me. Not the big speech, the small consolation. I reached into my bag under the table and closed my hand around my phone. I want you to understand something about what I do for a living. I spend my days reviewing financial records for inconsistencies. I build audit trails. I trace the movement of money through accounts the way other people trace roads on a map, looking for places where the path stops making sense, where a dollar should have gone left but went right, where the documentation says one thing and the balance says another. I am not aggressive about it. I am methodical. I am patient. I wait until I have everything before I say anything. I had been waiting for 2.5 years. I just want to ask one question, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. The table shifted its attention toward me with the particular curiosity of people who sense something is about to happen, but haven't decided yet whether it's going to be uncomfortable. What account did the mortgage payments come from? My mother blinked. What? The mortgage. The monthly payment. Mom, What account does it pull from? This isn't the time, sweetheart. She had shifted into the voice she used when she was trying to seal something off. Gentle, just firm enough to signal that the subject was meant to stay closed. I think it might be, I said. I kept my voice the way I keep my voice in audit meetings, even professionally neutral, because I want to make sure I understand what happened. Derek, you've been covering the mortgage for the past 2 years? Derek straightened slightly. That reflexive adjustment men like him make when they suspect they're about to be admired. We've contributed what we could. We wanted to make sure Mom and Dad didn't have to worry. Right, I nodded. That's great. What bank does the money come from? Brooke touched Derek's hand, just lightly, a small warning signal she probably didn't know she was sending. We use a few different accounts, she said carefully. We've been restructuring our finances, so the sourcing has been... Which accounts? I asked. Why are you doing this? My mother said, and now the gentleness was gone. Why can't you just let us have one nice evening? I'm asking a simple question about a mortgage payment. You're making it weird, Derek said. You do this. You come in with your spreadsheet energy, and you make everything a transaction. Not everything is a balance sheet. You're right, I said. Some things are. The mortgage payment is literally a transaction. That's what a transaction is. My father was watching me now with an expression I hadn't seen him direct at me since I was 12 years old and had calmly informed him during a family argument that I had been keeping records. He looked like a man who was beginning to remember who he was dealing with. I'll tell you what, I said. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I just want to look at one thing. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize in front of everyone at this table and pay for dinner. I opened the banking app on my phone. I have the transfer history from my account to Mom's personal savings going back to February 2 years ago. 28 transfers, $2,100 each. I want to see the corresponding deposits into the mortgage account. That's all. The silence that followed had a texture to it. My aunt was no longer looking at her bread. The family friends at the end of the table had stopped their conversation. Those are private accounts, my mother said. You're on the mortgage too, Mom. You added me as an authorized party when Dad got sick, in case anything ever happened and you needed someone to deal with the lender. I have access. I looked at her steadily. I've never used it. Do you want me to use it right now? My mother looked at Derek. Derek looked at Brooke. Brooke looked at the tablecloth. I opened the mortgage portal. I had the login saved from the day my mother gave it to me, in that terrifying early window after the stroke, when everything felt like it might collapse, and she was handing access to things freely, desperately, with both hands. I had never needed to use it. I had trusted the system. I had trusted her. The page loaded. I looked at the payment history column. I scrolled back 14 months. My heart dropped through the floor of my chest. Current status, delinquent, 2 months past due. Balance owed to reinstate, $4,312. Last payment received, October. It was December. Dad, I said, and something in my voice made him put down his glass. When did you last see a mortgage statement? Your mother handles. When did you last see one? He frowned slowly. I don't know. Your mother switched us to paperless. She said it was easier. It is easier, I said, for certain purposes. I turned the phone so he could see the screen, the red text, the delinquency notice, the date of last payment. He leaned forward. He read it the way people read things they are hoping to misunderstand. He read it twice. That can't be right, he said. It's a live portal, Dad. That's the current balance. We made a payment in November, Brooke said quickly. She had her own phone out now. I have the confirmation. It just sometimes it takes a while to post. These older servicers, their systems are. Show me the confirmation, I said. Brooke looked at her phone. She scrolled. She scrolled more. I have to find it. Take your time, I said. She scrolled for 45 seconds. The table watched her. My father watched her. My mother had placed both hands flat on the tablecloth and was staring at them as though she was trying to keep herself from floating away. I don't have it on this phone, Brooke said finally. Derek has it. I don't have it either, Derek said. His voice had changed. The performance quality had gone out of it. What was left sounded younger than I expected. I sent it to you. You didn't send it to me. I'm telling you, I sent it. Derek, I said. I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to give me a direct answer. Did you or Brooke make a single mortgage payment on my parents' house at any point in the last 2 years? The candle on the table between us flickered. Outside the private room, someone in the main restaurant laughed at something. A bright, ordinary sound from a world where this wasn't happening. Derek looked at Brooke. It was not the look of a man searching for confirmation. It was the look of a man who is trying to determine how much the person next to him is willing to hold. We contributed in other ways, Derek said. My father made a sound I had never heard him make before. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a shout. It was a low, pressurized exhale, the kind of sound a structure makes when something internal gives way. He pushed back slightly from the table and looked at his son with the eyes of a man who is doing a very fast, very painful calculation. In what ways? My father said. He was not asking. He was waiting. We helped Mom with the groceries. We came by on weekends. Derek stopped. He seemed to be hearing himself. He seemed to recognize, with the particular clarity that arrives too late, that he had nothing. The money I sent, I said, pulling up the transfer history. $2,100 a month for 28 months, totaling $58,800. Mom, where did it go? My mother finally looked up. Her eyes were dry, which somehow made it worse. It went to the house. Most of it. Things come up, sweetheart. Medical copays. The water heater. Derek and Brooke needed help with their security deposit when they moved to the new place and You gave them my money, I said. It's family money. It came from my paycheck. You have a good job. You can manage. Derek and Brooke were struggling, and you've never struggled the way I drove a car with a broken heater for 6 months because I couldn't afford to fix it, I said. My voice was still level. Barely. I have been eating meal-prepped lunches at my desk for 2 years. I turned down a position in Chicago because relocating would mean I couldn't keep sending the transfers. I made every single one of those choices because I thought I was keeping my parents in their house. Are you telling me some of that money went to Derek's security deposit? My mother opened her mouth. How much? I said. Silence. Mom, how much? I don't know the exact. I'll tell you how to find out, I said. I navigated to the transaction history on the mortgage servicer's account, cross-referencing the dates of my deposits against the dates payments had been made. It took me 4 minutes. My aunt, to her credit, did not leave the table. She sat very still and watched me work with the expression of someone who has decided that witnessing this is the right thing to do. The pattern was not hard to find once I was looking for it. Of the 28 months of transfers, 11 of them showed a full payment reaching the mortgage account within a week of my deposit. The other 17 showed partial payments, late payments, or, in 4 cases, no payment at all. The gap between what I had sent and what had landed on the mortgage over 28 months was approximately $19,000. $19,000 had gone somewhere else. The gap is about $19,000, I said. I turned the phone screen outward so my father could see the columns. That's the difference between what I sent and what the lender received. Derek stood up. He did not do it aggressively. He did it the way people stand up when they need to feel taller. You don't know what it's been like, he said. You've been in Columbus in your apartment with your stable job acting like you're the only one who has ever had pressure. I have been trying to build something. I have been grinding every single day to get this off the ground. And sometimes we needed. Sometimes the timing didn't work out, and Mom helped us bridge a gap. That is what family does. Family doesn't reroute mortgage payments to fund someone else's lifestyle, I said. It wasn't our lifestyle. Derek. My father's voice landed on the table like something heavy and blunt. Sit down. Derek sat down. My father turned to my mother. They have been married 35 years. I have spent my entire life watching them communicate in the shorthand of people who know each other completely. He looked at her the way he looked at her when something was broken beyond the ability of silence to repair it. Did you know they weren't paying the mortgage? He asked. My mother's jaw tightened. It was complicated. That is a yes, my father said. Andrew, she used his full name. She never used his full name. Did you know we were behind? I thought Derek was going to. He promised me by January he would have. Did you know? His voice was soft in the way that things are soft right before they are not. Yes, my mother whispered. The room held that for a moment. My father nodded once, slowly, like a man accepting news from a doctor. Then he looked at me. His face had the look it gets when he is doing something that costs him, the same look he had when he apologized to me at 16 for something I no longer even remember, the look of a man who does not apologize often, but means it completely when he does. Tell me what it would take to fix this, he said. $4,300 to reinstate the mortgage, I said, plus whatever we do about the $19,000 gap. We will pay that back, Brooke said. She had been very quiet for the last several minutes. Her voice now had the careful steadiness of someone who works in professional environments and has learned how to manage situations. We are not trying to steal from anyone. We are in a tight period, and we made some choices that in retrospect. Brooke, I said, not unkindly. I need you to understand something. I process financial compliance for a bank. I know what the difference is between borrowing and taking. And I know that what happened here, money transferred to a parent's account for a specific and documented purpose, being systematically redirected to a third party without the knowledge of the sender, has a specific legal name. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it so that when I tell you what I need to happen next, you understand why I need it to happen. Brooke looked at Derek. Derek looked at the tablecloth. I need a full accounting, I said, of where every dollar went. I need that in writing within 30 days. I need the mortgage reinstated before the end of this week, which I will handle personally and then be reimbursed for. And I need to be given formal authorized access to my parents' mortgage account and the household account going forward, so that payments are made directly and transparently. You can't just take over our finances, my mother said. Her voice had an edge of something that I recognized as shame converted into indignation. We are adults. You are, I said. And you made a choice to manage things in a way that put your home at risk while someone else was quietly funding the gap. I'm not trying to control you, Mom. I'm trying to make sure I know what I'm paying for when I'm paying for it. We don't need her involved in our accounts, Derek said to my father. This is between us. We'll handle it. Derek, my father said, you've been handling it. That sentence did more damage than anything else that had been said. Derek flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. My father stood up. He was not a tall man, but he had spent 22 years on a factory floor, and he stood the way men stand when they have done real physical work their entire lives, with a weight and a stillness that took up space. He looked at Derek the way I had only seen him look at Derek once before, when Derek was 19 and had totaled the family car and lied about it for a week. You will pay back what you borrowed, he said. All of it. I don't care how long it takes or what you have to sell. You will not call your mother until you have a first payment ready. And you will not speak to me again tonight. Derek opened his mouth. I'm not finished, my father said. Your sister has been making payments to keep this house for almost 3 years. She has never said a word about it to me. She drove 4 hours to sit at this table and watch me thank the wrong child. That is not something I can fix tonight, but I can start by asking everyone at this table to know what kind of person she is. And I can ask her to forgive me for not knowing sooner. He looked at me. I was 32 years old, and I had never cried at a family dinner in my life. I did not exactly cry then. But I felt something in my chest open up that had been shut for a very long time. You didn't know, I said. I should have looked. She asked you not to. I should have looked anyway. Brooke reached for her purse. Derek was already standing. They moved through the restaurant in that particular way of people who know they are being watched and are trying to minimize the surface area of their humiliation. The oak door to the private room swung shut behind them. My aunt, who had said nothing for 45 minutes, reached across and covered my hand with hers. She did not say anything. She didn't need to. We did not exactly salvage the dinner, but we stayed. My father ordered the tiramisu because he always orders the tiramisu. And the candles kept burning, and my mother spent a long time in the restroom and came back with her makeup repaired and did not speak for a while, which was, all things considered, the right choice. I reinstated the mortgage on a Thursday morning from my desk in Columbus, transferring the $4,312 from my savings account directly to the servicer. I set up future payments to come from the same account with automatic confirmation notices sent to my email. I drafted an authorized payment authorization form that I had the lender notarize, which added me as a payment oversight party on the account. My father signed it without hesitation. My mother signed it without saying anything. The accounting, when Derek finally submitted it 38 days later, was a document I recognized immediately as the work of someone who had hoped partial truth would read as full transparency. I spent 2 evenings cross-referencing it against the transaction records I had pulled from my mother's account, and when I sent Derek the annotated version with the discrepancies highlighted, he did not respond for 4 days. When he did respond, it was to say that he and Brooke were separating, and that he was moving back in with a friend, and that he would set up a payment plan as soon as things stabilized. I sent him a message that said, "I need a start date and an amount. That's all. When you have those, let me know." He did eventually send money, $400 a month, which at the rate of the total gap would take approximately 4 years to fully repay, and I am genuinely uncertain whether he will maintain it. But it is something, and it is documented, and I receive a transfer confirmation on the 15th of every month that I save in the same folder where I keep everything else. My father called me on a Sunday in February, not for any particular reason. He asked about my job, and I asked about his physical therapy, and he told me the neighbor's dog had started coming into the yard, and he wasn't sure whether to be annoyed or just accept it. "I talked to your brother," he said toward the end. "I know," I said. "He's struggling." "I know." "I think he might come around," my father said, with the particular hope of a parent who has decided to keep hoping regardless of return. "He might," I said. A pause. "I'm proud of you," he said. "It came out the way things come out when they have been sitting unsaid for a long time and have finally found their door. I should say it more. Your mother and I both should. You're the kind of person who holds things together quietly, and people like that don't always get told." I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold in my hand, watching the morning light come through the window, and I felt something settle that had been shifting for years. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "I mean it. I know you do." After we hung up, I opened the folder on my phone, the one labeled Parents Ongoing. I looked at the transfer history, all 28 entries in a clean descending line, each one a first of the month, each one with the memo that said, simply, household. I thought about what the word meant. Household, the thing you keep standing, the thing you show up for, quietly, without a toast, without a speech, without a diamond bracelet on your wrist, and a borrowed story on your lips. I closed the folder. I finished my coffee. I drove to work.